Hi everyone, before you dive into the episode, I just wanted to interrupt really quickly. You're gonna dive into this episode and you're gonna hear me call this podcast the Holistic Hustle Podcast. And that is because it used to be the old name of this podcast. And it was an amazing ride. I'm so grateful for the Holistic Hustle Podcast and what it served. But recently I've decided to rebrand the podcast based off the evolution of my own journey, my own story, and where God is calling me to go next. And so now the rebrand, which you may know already, is called Wisdom is Wealth. Didn't want you to be confused, so dive into this episode. They were amazing episode, amazing guests, amazing insights, and enjoy.
Your greatest pain should be the thing that you try to solve for other people.
Hi, I'm Justin Buonamo, and this is Holistic Hustle. Holistic Hustle is doing things for the right reasons, working hard for the right reasons. The healthy balance of what work and progression and accomplishment and success should actually look like. Welcome back to another episode of the Holistic Hustle Podcast with Justin Buonamo. I'm here with my boy Matt Enns today, who is a transformational men's coach who helps men restore their masculinity and save their marriage. His coaching programs have helped hundreds of men go from the brink of divorce to a thriving, intimately connected relationship. He lives in Austin, Texas with his wife Whitney and 2 kids, and Matt and I have been following each other on social for a couple of years now. And just the consistent work that this man has put into creating content and products and experiences for his followers, his audience, and his clients has really paid off in so many ways. And the big reason why is because he truthfully cares, right? And he also has a large expertise in the things that he teaches and coaches other men on. And so I'm so excited to have you here today, Matt. Thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited. Yeah, we've been following each other for a couple of years now, so it's cool. I think this is our first time actually getting to interact face to face, so it's wonderful.
Absolutely, dude. And again, like your content and your growth and your purpose and your energy just make it so easy, right? It made it so easy for me to reach out. I was like, I got to get this guy on here because whether it's, you know, a male listening to this or a female, like I think the things that you coach through and talk about are so helpful for any relationship, but mainly marriages, which are hard, dude. I've been married for a little over 3 years, and there were some times where we were just like, oh, shoot, we might not make this. Obviously, that never would be the case and, you know, fully giving up. But you could see how things just get tougher as you get into the marriage, as life starts to life, as you add in kids to the component, and while you're running a business or two, right? It is complicated, right? But I think your background's really equipped you with an interesting and relatable story, but also a lot of passion. And so, like, you have an awesome and interesting background, MBA to financial advisor, a couple of business ventures, and now a very successful coaching business, helping people restore and save their marriage. And so what has been your biggest motivation or personal marriage experience that you think has inspired you to help others with their marriage?
Yeah. So as I was kind of realizing that finance was not what I was meant to be doing, and kind of coming to terms very slowly with the fact that coaching was what I was meant to be doing, it wasn't like an epiphany moment. This is something that I kind of admitted to myself over a long period of time. And I kind of developed this belief that if you're going to be coaching, one of the highest callings you can have is to help people solve the greatest problem that you've ever faced. Wow. And the most painful thing I'd ever been through was certainly my separation. And so although I kind of ran away from that for a little bit, and I was like, well, the next most painful thing was not knowing my purpose and having anxiety. And so I started out there, but fate pushed me very quickly back into the relationship space where I was supposed to be. And I've been there since. So yeah, the shorter answer is I know the pain really, really deeply. And so when I get to help people resolve that pain in a way that means they get to stay with the love of their life, they get to keep their family together, they get to keep their social circles and everything else, there's very little that's more meaningful or more motivating to me than that.
I think that it's awesome. Say that quote one more time, though. When you get into coaching, the thing you should help people with the most is the thing that hurts you the most. Something like that. Say that again.
Yeah, like your greatest pain should be the thing that you try to solve for other people.
Boom. I love that.
It also gives so much meaning to it, right? Because then it's like, okay, it wasn't just this thing that hurt me. It was like I got these scars for a reason so that I can prevent other people from getting the same scars. And it makes it, you can look back on that dark time instead of looking back on it with kind of fear, you can look back on it with gratitude and look at it as like, hey, that was dark, but man, in hindsight, there was so much beauty in that.
That's so good. That's so good. And I think either definitely when you do sign up to be a coach, but I think before you sign up to be a coach, if God has it in your purpose, right? You sign yourself up to go through some tension, to be faced with some mountains, right? And I always say when I signed up to coach people on finances, you best believe I signed up for some financial tension, right? So I can gain the asset of wisdom from the experience to then be able to better help the people that I coach. Right.
Well
And
said.
when I signed up for, business coaching people too, as well, you best believe I signed up for some tension in the business. Right. And so I love that. I think it's so good because the majority of the experience I think some of my clients have is just based off of the mistakes, the tension, right, and the pain that I've experienced in the past and what I've learned from it. Like, yeah, do we teach off of our wins? 1000%. But I think the most meaningful and impactful teachings come from that pain. And I'm happy that you see it that way. And so was the separation you're talking about, is it with Whitney or was it with the past significant other?
It was with Whitney. Yeah. So
Okay.
this was 4 or 5 years ago. There were some kind of mini separations and stuff, but the long and short of it was we ended up living separately for 6 months. And for most of that time, we communicated about the kids. We hung out a little bit with the kids, but there was no even thought of reconciling. It was like, this is done.
Oh,
We're
wow.
going our separate ways. And neither of us wanted that to happen, but especially I didn't want that to happen. And so it was painful to say the
Yeah.
least.
Dude, I appreciate that perspective, and I didn't know that part where it was, uh, you guys didn't have any intentions, or at least didn't think it was going to be coming back together. And now, she's in the majority of your content. She's helping out a ton. We just followed each other on Instagram today, and I was going through her stuff, and I'm like, yo, these two are dope. They're
That's
out here
awesome.
just
Thank you.
creating content and just impacting. So, like, what role does she play in the business?
Yeah, so that's changed recently. So initially, so Whitney's been at home with the kids for quite a while now. And initially, there wasn't a whole lot of involvement in the business. She kind of runs the rest of our lives. So I leave her, she doesn't have to run the business as well. But
Yeah.
that actually changed this year around January, February. Things were just growing and we weren't able to hire people that we trusted fast enough. And things were just way too much and I had way too much on my plate. And so in our personal lives, she is very much the detail person. She kind of runs everything. So we basically brought her in the same capacity in the business. So she kind of plays the role of like a CEO or a chief of operations or something like that. So she oversees everything, staffing, making sure things are where they're supposed to be on time. And that frees me up because I'm very much not a detail person. That frees me up to do
Mhm.
what I love, which is content, coaching, creativity, and kind of nothing else. Like I'm a little bit involved with the sales team and that sort of stuff, but I really get to do the things that fire me up. And she's very good at that. And so just like we've done with our family life, we've really differentiated our roles so that we're both doing the things that we're best at. And we try to spend very little time doing the things that we're not good at. And it's really paying dividends in the business. Like our family life is smoother. We both have more time. She doesn't have more time, but we both have more time with each other because I have more time.
Yeah.
And it's working really well.
Dude, it's so awesome. That warms my heart hearing that. It's such an awesome partnership. And, one thing that's important there too, as well, is like you may start off your agreement, if you will, or the details of your partnership with your significant other one way. And as your business or life in totality evolves, so does that partnership sometimes. And so I'm happy you
Absolutely.
guys made that evolution so successfully, man. And I'm just proud of you guys so much. But I'm really proud of you for the bringing of things back together. And so you've obviously got a lot of experience in the marriage space in your own situation. I know you've helped hundreds of people. So I'd be curious, like what, and I'm honestly curious for my own self here. What is one piece of marriage advice that's popular in the industry that you don't necessarily agree with?
Ooh, but everything is a communication issue. Um, Communication plays a role in everything, but communication is not enough to fix your relationship. If you're both really hurting each other and you're not fulfilling each other's needs, and you don't even know what she needs in a relationship, and you don't know what you need, and she doesn't know what you need, you can be very good communicators, and that will help. That'll be an enormous help, but it's not going to solve the issue. And that's kind of tied to this isn't exactly a bit of advice, but it's kind of a belief in the relationship community that I think is very ineffective. And that's sort of this unwillingness to recognize the difference between men and women.
Mm,
And a
mm,
lot of, especially traditional therapy, there's sort of this insistence that men and women can be treated in the same way and that men and women need to learn the same lessons. And I think
and
that's
I think that's
radically untrue.
yeah, yeah.
And if you want to really heal your relationship, we have to do for this generation and for each other what our dads didn't do for us and what their dads didn't do for them. I'm not blaming our dads by any means. And what TV didn't do for us growing up. Like we didn't get an example of what it is to be a good husband and a good father on TV. Like every TV dad was some version of Homer Simpson, right?
Yeah.
Kind of bumbling around, good-heartedly, but completely incompetent and lazy and self-indulgent and irresponsible. And Marge, just kept the family together through her own capacity. So we don't know what it is to even be a man in a relationship anymore. Nobody teaches us this. It's like verboten to even talk about. So understanding, hey, there's lots of individuals and there's lots of differences in terms of what people are looking for in a relationship. But on average, women are looking for very, very different things than men. Men are looking for very, very different things from women in a relationship. And until you understand what those things are and you understand, oh, this is how she communicates her needs, which is not at all how I communicate mine. And until she understands vice versa, you're going to be talking past each other. You're going to be aiming at the wrong target, and things aren't really going to click in the relationship until you both learn to speak each other's language, understand what each other are looking for, and then you've actually got a hope in hell at making things better.
That's so good. That's so good. Just like any situation, individual from individual is different. And they've got different needs, different ways that they can be maybe coached, different ways that they show up in relationships, right? Either that's with themselves or other people. And so, just starting at the baseline from a gender standpoint, like most times men and women need to be treated a little bit differently, right? Not just that there aren't some similarities, not to be sexist at all either, but just facts based off the creature and the origin of the creature, right?
Yeah.
What makes sense when addressing them to understand their needs and then helping to fulfill those needs the way you can. And so, are you familiar with Father Richard Rohr by any chance? He's just got some incredible content about really what it means to become, a real man and to grow and to mature. And kind of like you said, nobody teaches us how to be a good husband. I think that's a part of just, entering manhood, right? And nobody teaches us, especially in the United States, about how to be a good man in totality or in general, right? Like when do you grow up? When do you become a man? When you turn 18, when you turn 21, when you get arrested, right? When you have a kid, when you get married, it's just like back in the day in societies, when it came particularly to males, you had like some type of ceremonial or cultural type of event that signified you are now a man. And after this event or after this time frame, you're going to be mentored by these 10 great men, right? Whether that was bar mitzvahs or whether that was any type of rituals that the culture had, that just was like, what this means is you're becoming a man, right? And then you got to follow around all these other good men who were good examples for you. And we just don't have that anymore. And I think that a big part of marriage is just like men are expected to be tough. Men are expected to be breadwinners. Men, are expected to not show their emotions as much, or at least that's what society has made shown. Or has made it look like what is the norm, if you will. But one point to like your Homer Simpson's dad thing, aside from that, the other dad that we saw in TV growing up was the guy who is the CEO of a company who didn't care about anything but, money and their professional success, was gone 70 hours a week, was, like the 90s sitcom when they're showing up at the end of the sporting event when it's over and the kids all pissed off, right? And so I 1000% agree with you. Like even me, like when I got married, I didn't know how to show up in marriage. I didn't see a good example growing up, right? And I didn't have that example. And I think that's something that you actually, I know for a fact, you are two men, right, that are in marriage and looking for answers. And I think a big part of that is the way you teach things. Yes, your experience, but the way you teach things. And so can you break down your psycho sovereignty process and what kind of results your clients are seeing from this framework?
Yeah, so we've kind of updated our marketing material on that and simplified it a little bit. So there's kind of two steps to the process. The first is transformation. That's internal work on you as a man, restoring that healthy masculinity. And the second step is information. That's understanding how she works, how her mind works, how her emotional system works. And the reason why we start with the internal transformation is if there are things going wrong outside of you as a man, almost always there's an internal problem that needs to be corrected. It's sort of like that idea that you see in a lot of movies. Lion King is a good example. When the king is well, the kingdom is thriving. And when the king is not well, the kingdom falls apart, right? When Scar takes over, the clouds cover the sun, all the grass goes away, the plants die, the animals all leave, and it's nothing but carcasses and darkness. And when Simba, the return of the king, happens, everything starts growing again. So if things are going wrong in your life, in your business, in any capacity, you want to look inside and say, okay, what internal to me is causing this external manifestation of that internal problem?
Yep. Amen.
And when you take that approach, not only is it more effective, but it's empowering, because if it's something that's internal to you, then you actually can do something about it. If it's other people, if you're the victim, if it's someone else's fault, if it's some societal force, there is nothing that you can do to change it. So you might as well just cry,
Right.
right? But when you look inside of yourself and you address issues of past trauma, when you address your issues of people pleasing or of avoidance or of anxiety or anger or whatever it is, and you correct those things, you're now able to show up in the relationship in a way where you can stand on your own 2 feet from a place of calm and confidence and love and hear the other person out rather than reacting defensively, or try to actually assess a problem logically and say, what was my role in this? Not just reflexively blame it on someone else and whine about it. And when you're able to show up with that new king energy, and then you bring in the information aspect, right? Actually understanding her, learning to interpret her subtle little cues, learning to understand why she says things that sound crazy or contradictory, even though she's really smart. When you can actually make sense of all that, you can do something with the information when you're right inside of yourself. And so
Yeah.
those are the 2 steps that we really go through. And both of them are effective on their own. But if you really want to get incredible results in your relationship and in your life, you have to have both of those things.
That's so good. That's so good because yeah, you can go collect the information from her, but you're going to make it falsely mean something about you if you're not comfortable and loving of yourself, right? If you're not comfortable with yourself, if you're not loving yourself, you're in a dark space, you have high self-doubt for some reason or another, right? Like you can go collect that information from her, right? Collect the social cues, sense what you're trying to sense, even get verbal feedback from her too as well. But you're not going to be able to internalize it and then embody it the right way if you're not right with yourself. Right. And I do
100%.
it all the time, right? Like if I know I'm in a bad spot or like I've been off for a week or so, or I'm just, leaking over into some scarcity or whatever that is, right? Like I'll avoid conversations about my inadequacies because, for one, I'm not avoiding them in totality, but it's just not a good time to have them because, where I'm at personally isn't going to allow me to do what I need to do with the information that's available to me. And so I think that's gold. I think that's gold. I always say our external wealth is just a reflection of our internal wealth. Our
100%.
external reality is just really just a reflection of our internal reality. And so I love that advice. Before we wrap up here, what is one piece of advice that you would give to men right now who feel stuck or less than in their marriage?
Um, Men tend to really internalize their wife's rejection, right? And if she is not being intimate with you, if she's putting you down in front of other people, if she's saying you're not doing enough, you don't love her enough, you're not the man that she needs, don't look at that as actually just she's making a factual assessment of who you are. Really, what's happening is she sees your potential, she sees all that you could be, and she's very disappointed that you're not showing up as the man that she knows you could be. And
Mm.
so she's not communicating it well, most likely. She's probably communicating it in a very hurtful way, but that's really where it's coming from. And if you switch up the way that you understand her, the way that you make her feel safe, you can actually end up, instead of doing 10 hours of chores for her a week, you can end up doing 20 minutes a week. And her perspective on you will be that you sacrifice for her and she's so appreciative and she's so thankful. It's really the method of delivery and being able to connect with that underlying emotional reality that she's experiencing and not getting caught up in the details and what she says she's unhappy about and all these things, but seeing to that underlying emotional truth. Because when you can do that, and I've seen this from very, very disastrous relationships, when you can make her feel safe and connected like that, the way that she looks at you changes. Because for women, especially, all of us do this, but particularly women, because they're much more in touch with their feelings. When she is feeling disconnected and unsupported and unloved in the relationship, she is going to look at you through that lens and she's going to see you as somebody who is unloving and unsupportive, and she's going to see you in a really negative light. But if you switch up that emotional dynamic and all of a sudden she's feeling very safe and very connected and very fulfilled, very supported in the relationship, she's going to look at you through that lens. And so she might have told you a lot of horrible things about who you are, and she might have really rejected you. She might have compared you negatively to her exes. And you can take that much too seriously and think that she means that in some permanent sense. It's just a reflection of where she's at in the relationship. And if you can switch that up and get her feeling connected in the relationship, she will then look at you in a more honest way and she'll be able to express her deeper feelings, which is that you are the man that she's loved for so long. She does look up to you. She does think highly of you. She does appreciate you. So if your marriage is at that state, don't let it affect you and think like, okay, this is really who I am. She knows me better than anybody else. She knows all my deep, dark secrets. And this is what she thinks of me. That's probably who I am. It's like, no, that's how she feels about you because she feels disconnected from you right now. And if you can get her connected again, she'll feel very differently about you. So don't let her current disconnect affect the way that you view yourself. You're important. You're necessary. There are people that depend on you. You have incredible skills. You've had amazing accomplishments, and you have an incredible potential life ahead of you. If you're willing to address those internal factors, take that ownership and begin to work towards your potential. And if you do that, she will see that. She will love you. She will respect you. She will acknowledge that. And it's very important to keep that in mind so that you can more easily move towards that potential.
It's such good feedback. And it entails a lot of grace for yourself and for your wife too, as well. Because basically what you're saying is while she's growing, right, she's probably going to talk to you in a suboptimal way or say some things that, run a high risk of you internalizing them the wrong way. Right. And so what we're saying is you gotta be gentle and kind to yourself, that what she's saying isn't truthfully who you are, right? But she just cares about you, but she's learning and growing as well, to be able to communicate her needs. And so I think that's great advice. I know I said that was the last question, but I got one more. So
Let's do it.
and so I get that for sure. I think it's one thing if they're growing, right? Like, okay, you're talking to me in a way that like I don't appreciate. I mean, like the things you're saying, you're comparing me to your ex, or you're just degrading me sometimes in some of the ways that you're saying. And I know it's coming from love, but also at the same time, it's still hurtful the way that she's saying, and she needs to grow.
Yes.
And so it's one thing if she is growing and making improvements, right? But what would be the advice for anybody listening to this who their significant other like isn't willing to grow, and you're like, I'm trying all these things, but like they don't want to change and they don't see a problem with themselves. Like that's a tough situation. Would you agree?
Definitely. And I've got a very controversial answer here,
Mm.
and that doesn't bother me one bit, but it bothers some people, and that's okay. Um, but I think although I'm going to say something that women might initially think is not true or simple-minded, most of them, when they hear this out, they go, "That's absolutely fucking correct."
Mm.
So sorry for my outdoor voice.
You're good.
Um, so if you are, and I usually work with men, so I'm gonna answer this question to men because I think it illustrates the point for both to some degree. If you are a man and you are waiting for her to change in the relationship and to take that ownership and really try to make the relationship better, you'll probably keep waiting. It can happen, but most of the time when a woman's very disconnected in a relationship, it's because she's already tried for a very, very long time and she doesn't feel
Mm.
like she's getting what she needs back in the relationship. And it's too painful for her to keep trying.
Mm.
So it does require, in my experience, that the man makes the changes. And women have this incredible intuition and this incredible emotional insight that men simply don't have. And so if a woman is happy and fulfilled in a relationship, she is going to be a super wife and a super mom almost immediately. A man can be in a super healthy, super happy marriage with a wonderful wife, and he can kind of be an irresponsible child who doesn't give much back to the relationship. I don't really see that going both ways. If she's happy and getting what she needs, she will want to make you happy. So if your wife, for example, is not changing, change and see
Yeah.
if she changes in response to that. And the vast majority of the time, when she sees you making those changes and taking that leadership and taking that ownership, she'll look at you and say, "That's the man that I want to be with. That's the man that I want to rely on. That's the man who I can respect, who I can come alongside him in his journey." And she will be thrilled to give you what you need in return. Now, flip side of that, if a woman is waiting for her husband to change and it's just not happening, I wish there was a better answer than this, but and I hate even saying this because I don't want to encourage anybody down this path. I really don't, but it's true, and I don't want to say something that isn't true. He needs a wake up call. It's kind of like the alcoholic who always says, "Yeah, I should maybe stop drinking, but it's not that big a deal." He's not going to change until he gets arrested, till he hurts someone, till he hurts himself, till he loses his job. It's that wake up call, right? And men, as amazing and incredible as they are, and I have so much respect and love for men, um, things can go very poorly in a relationship for a very long time before a man will even notice that things aren't going very well.
For
Before
sure.
he'll realize, oh, these things that she was saying were a problem for the last 5 years are actually a problem. And oftentimes that takes divorce being on the table before he goes, oh shit, like I might lose everything that matters most to me. And her perspective will often be like, I've been telling him this for 5 years. He doesn't care. He doesn't love me enough to change. No, he actually doesn't get that it's a problem. It does
Yeah.
not mean he doesn't love you. He doesn't get it like you do. You can read his needs. You know where he's at emotionally. You know what he needs. So if you're not doing what he needs, you know you're not doing what he needs. He actually doesn't know. He thinks things are pretty good. And it's not until that wake up call happens, and then you'll see whoa, he actually loves me way more than I can imagine. I thought he wouldn't even care when I said I wanted a divorce, but he is an absolute mess because of it. He does care. He doesn't know. And unfortunately, that rude wake up call, that rock bottom is often what it takes for people to change. You know, this in finances and anything else. Some people, most people, it takes that rock bottom before they really make those changes. So,
For sure. Death, disease, divorce, and destruction, right, are
yeah,
really what it takes for most people to truthfully change. And I think what you said was spot on. I agree with everything you said. And I think, from a husband standpoint, from a male standpoint, you're right. Like a lot of times we don't realize how bad it really is, for many different reasons. And I think a big thing is because change is really hard, and stepping up and trying to do better as a husband and changing and growing is a tough conversation. And it's a tough process for many reasons. One, stepping up and changing and saying I need to do better is initially admitting inadequacies, saying that I am wrong, I am less than, or I have room for improvement, or I made these mistakes, I carried this shame, this guilt. And that's a hard conversation no matter the topic. Right. And then when you, after you make that apology, that's the acknowledgement, excuse me, that's the very first step of a long process of change, right? Because it's hard work what you have to do to be able to change internally, to then be able to show up better in everything you do, but particularly your marriage, to get best results. And again,
absolutely.
unfortunately, it takes hardship for people to understand why they need to change, and that change is even needed in the first place. And I think us as men and husband, at least from my experience, you get complacent, right? And you get complacent, people treat you how you train them to treat you in
100%.
many ways. Right. And so I don't think your answer was controversial at all. I think it was spot on. But I think the biggest thing I want people to hear here is like, this is a journey and a change and a growth pattern that is well needed, right? If you want your marriage to succeed. And I can relate so much to, like, you have to step up as the man to create the change, because like Matt said, most times the woman's been trying for years with no results. And so in a way, she's kind of given up or just waiting around for you to finally do something, right? And this isn't something that's supposed to be easy, right? At least at first, it's going to be hard, because anything worth developing and growing into and acquiring and sustaining throughout life is hard, right? And especially when you add another person into it, aka a marriage, and those relationship dynamics. And so change is hard, marriage is hard, but it's well worth it, right? And you need somebody in your corner that knows what they're doing, that has your best interest in mind, right? But also has proven results in his own story, and with working with hundreds of clients. And Matt is that guy for you. So Matt, this was super valuable today. Where can people find you and connect?
We're getting YouTube going and other platforms going, but right now it's basically just Instagram. So at @the_sovereign_man, best place to get a hold of me. You can shoot me a DM and we can chat there.
Perfect. We will put his handles in the show notes, right? And please reach out. Please shoot him a follow. His YouTube page is growing. I was just checking it out the other day. I forgot that I was prepping for a podcast, but I'm just literally got down a rabbit hole. I'm like consuming. I was like, I should probably take a note or two
I appreciate
after a
that.
video or two. So the content's awesome. And Matt, you're awesome, dude. So thank you so much for being here today, brother. Of
Much appreciated. Thank you for the opportunity.
course, of course. And thank you everyone for joining us on another episode of the Holistic Hustle podcast. If this is something that you enjoyed, please comment, subscribe, download. And like I always say, if you know somebody that would benefit from this, and I'm sure you do based off this topic, please share this with them. I always say I want to create content that changes and impacts the world. And you can help by allocating this content to the right people for us. So we appreciate y'all, and we'll see you in the next episode.